This podcast is brought to you by Universal Audio, a pioneer in audio recording for more than 50 years. UA faithfully crafts classic analog recording hardware like the LA2A and 1176 and is committed to creating new digital recording tools with the sound and spirit of vintage analog technology. Check out their line of Apollo audio interfaces, UAD plugins, and more at uaudio.com.
Hey, it's Larry Crane. Welcome to the Tape Op Podcast. How does a Memphis-born teen become an intern and eventually chief engineer at Sun Studio? How does the same guy go on to record Jason Isbell, Margo Price, Isaak, Drive-By Truckers, The Rival Sons, and Kris Kristofferson, as well as win a Grammy? And how the heck did he follow in Sam Phillips' legendary footsteps to end up recording at Sam Phillips Recording Service and mixing Elvis records? How did he end up working on amazing upcoming releases, including albums by Emily Barker, Sean Rowe, Patrick Sweany, and Margo Price's follow-up to Midwest Farmer's Daughter? We'll find out in this interview with the affable Matt Ross-Spang. Enjoy.
This audio recording was not originally tracked with the intent of using for a podcast. It was recorded solely for transcription for our print interview. Please forgive any balance issues, background sounds, or lack of clarity. Enjoy.
So, from a pretty young age, you got excited about studios and...
Yeah, I recorded at Sun when I was 14. I got a 2-hour gift certificate for my birthday. And it was awful. I mean, what we did was awful, but I love playing guitar. I just play guitar every day. And I didn't really write or nothing, and we didn't really play out live. The goal was just be cool to get in the studio. Yeah. It didn't matter what studio, it was just the studio.
Yeah.
You know? And when I got in the Sun, we couldn't go till 6 o'clock at night, and I remember it was raining, and the engineer was James Lott, who later I interned from, but he was just a character, and he just treated us like we deserved to be there when we totally didn't.
Really?
And just a great guy, but the way he mixed, and he had the big board, it was a huge board and all these things, and he started adding reverb and delays, and I was just transfixed at that point. I think deep down I knew I'd never be like a great guitar player, nor did I love playing guitar, but I'm not like a noodler or anything. I just like being a good rhythm guy or something.
Right.
And I toured with the bands for a while I started entering the studio, and I realized I don't really want to be on the road. I'm kind of a homebody. And the studio is so much of like a home, for the engineers.
You're in there. You're inside.
So that quickly kind of like, I say quickly, but I'm very lucky, I feel like, to be that young to figure out exactly what I want to do, and I got to just start doing it and stuff. But I started at Sun at 16 interning and doing tours during the day.
So. So you were one of the tour guides?
I started as a tour guide, and intern basically about the same time. And then I became a manager for the tour side, and I became the chief engineer after probably 5 or 6 years of bring intern to assistant to kind of second engineer. And then he left, and I became the main engineer.
Wow, that's pretty.
Yeah, wow.
That's pretty wild. So the gear that was in there, though, like when you started, was not even anything like the original Sun equipment.
Sam left. Sam was only at Sun for 9 years, and he left and built this beautiful place. And technology changed so much, just like it does now, from 51 to 59. I mean, they went from no tape to 3-track to, never having a recording console, from using broadcast stuff to. But anyway, so Sun reopened in the 80s. It was empty for a while, and they had a lot of 80s kind of equipment. It looked like an 80s kind of home studio. It was a really big Soundcraft board. Mm-hmm. We used cakewalk audio instead of sonar. Wow. And there's a big 2-inch machine that was basically a ashtray, a nicotine collector, and not a lot of great mics, but we had a great room, and I didn't know anything about gear, and I feel very fortunate to learn on something like. I mean, I remember the console had so many issues.
Yeah.
that you couldn't use more than 12 channels because 12 channels didn't work,
Yeah.
And stuff, just you had to work harder. And I remember the first time I worked, it was probably 10 years before I worked on used a U-47 or some of these bigger pieces of gear. But it, it didn't have any of the original kind of stuff. So
people and the usage of the studio is kind of unique in that during the day it was always a tour stuff, and then after 6 people could have these. How late did these kind of sessions go?
It depends, So a lot of times it was by the hour. It's like a 2-hour limit. So some people just come in and do 2 hours. Some people would usually go, and as an engineer, you get there early. You don't get out till the session could finish at midnight, but then you're often there till 2. And I was when I was that young, James, like I said, he was, when you're intern under someone, not only is he your friend, he's kind of like a mentor, a hero, a boss, a dad, all these things kind of rolled into one. And he's a phenomenal guitar player. And I would just learn guitar licks from him because he could play any style. He was a great session guy. He would tell me stories, and I just soaked it. I never wanted to leave. And I had to go home because I had high school the next day, and my parents would kill me if I didn't get home at a certain time. But sessions couldn't start till about 6:30, and you couldn't set up beforehand. They could drop some stuff off, but I really enjoyed part of that because I kind of had culture shock going to Nashville or other places, and we're supposed to set up the day before. And then the band doesn't come, and we're supposed to get a sound check somehow, or the drummer comes at 10 and the bass player comes at 2, and because I loved it, son. It's one room, we all sound check together. Like I need to hear everybody together,
right?
And that doesn't matter if you're in a booth or not. You still got to hear how the drums play off the bass, and so I enjoyed that, and it made me really fast. We had to be cutting because you felt like you're on there. They're paying for this. We better be cutting by 7:15 or.
Yeah,
they might be pissed. So, and you had to tear down every night.
Right.
So
most of the sessions just kind of like for fan based kind of reasons. There,
you get a lot of that. Everyone from all over wants to record at Sun, whether it's like just a souvenir or they're actually making a record or something. But Memphis in general is that place that I think people like. They're going to do the one funky track on the record. We're going to go to Memphis. We'll just do that one funky track. And it ends up being the best track on the record. It's like, come do the whole album go do the whole album. But yeah, Sun wasn't a lot of like weak bookings or nothing. I tried to really, when I became head engineer, I left the hourly rate kind of high, because oftentimes people just want to do 2 hours. You can't really get much done in 2 hours. So I tried to make it like cheaper for the day, and way cheaper for 3 days, and way cheaper for a week. Because I'd rather have those people in that we're going to spend time and get things done right than rush for 2 hours. But it did help me get really fast, I feel like, and getting people from all over. And I think, and we hit on this at Ardent, but getting people in all different talent levels. It really and coming to a place that's their dream to record, coming to a historic place where they're already nervous. You have to really be good at calming people down, at welcoming them, and at being patient. And I get people from Japan who can't speak English. They want to record here, and they want to hire session musicians. So you got to work that out and then try and figure out what they want to do, and do you like the take, and and so all that I think really helped me later on to not have a ego or not be upset about if someone's not that good. I don't get upset or anything, because I've done the worst there is to do, and as long as they're happy, that's part of the job, Yeah,
we always figured there were certain sessions there that were just for them to take home. And go, I did it. I went there.
Yeah, and they had the best time, and then they send you Christmas gifts or cards or, you know what I mean? Like it's just
it's a special moment.
So there's no reason to feel like you're too good to do that, I think, Although I still feel like that sometimes.
Well, the days get longer and longer.
Yeah.
So when you did something that was like a longer booking, like several days or such, how did you work with like setting up, tearing down, and things like that?
You just really push stuff to the side. I would take all the microphones down because there are tourists in there, and believe it or not, people will steal shit. I remember when I first started there, we had SM81s, and about 6 months into me working there, we no longer had SM81s because someone just tagged them.
Wow.
It's, and obviously capos and stuff go, but people just pack up their stuff, push it to the side. I could leave some of the stands around the drums in the area, but oftentimes when 200 people have been through there, you want to just move them back. You don't trust where they are.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do like about that is, no matter what it is, whether even when if you're mixing in the box and it's just like it was, the plug-in sounds just like it did yesterday. It never sounds exactly like the moment you just cut it. So playback is always, what headspace are you in, and it never sounds exactly like it did. So the one thing I liked about resetting up every night was it got you back into the music. You removed the mics, you questioned what you did, you had an idea, you moved them back, you went back, and the faders were all the same, but you still kind of muted stuff and felt like you got back into the the comfort of starting a tracking session or something.
Man.
I don't know how to explain it, but it was it really helped. And sometimes you beat it the next day instead of just leaving it and saying, no, we had it, we're not.
I'm never satisfied. I feel like every session I could get better.
Me too, So. And I think sometimes when it's like day 6 of a session or something, you kind of get tunnel vision. When you're in mixing and someone says, I'd like to go do a shaker, and you almost want to go, no, I'm set up for mixing. And of course, that's not the answer. The answer is, of course, let's go do it. But I feel like that sometimes with tracking where you've committed this drum sound on like 2 or 3 songs, so there's something you don't change it. But then the other side of you's like, go make it better or something. So I liked that aspect of tearing down and maybe, and I don't know about you, but I go home and think about the session at night, and I'll dream I might have a dream or I'll wake up and go, what if I put a SM7 on a...
I've totally had that. I walk in the next day and I'd fallen asleep, I'll think about something.
Yeah.
And if I can remember it, it's always like a little production idea.
And when you got to reset up, it's easier to change it out than to say... Hey, let's pause the song for a minute. I want to try something. So there's good and bads to it, but I try and see the positive and everything. And that's one of the things although, part of it is when you have, there's things that are negatives to other people in the studio, like, someone may worry that you don't have an SSL or something, or a certain amount of Pro Tools. You find ways to here's the good in what I have. And so I got good about people calling the Sun and saying like, well, that's kind of a bummer. We got to tear down every night. And I go, well, it's kind of cool because you get we beat it every day. We get better every day. Yeah. And so I got good at kind of selling the what some people call the negatives about it. So that could just be my sales pitch.
Yeah. I mean, was anyone ever like shutting the studio down? Like, is there any to do day after day and just be in there?
No, I mean, we did a T-Bone Burnett record with John Mellencamp, and I remember I went to the owner. I said, they want to book 3 days, and this is the biggest producer, especially at that time, and this is one of the biggest artists, and they still have to start at 6. It was it wasn't. I think Chris Isaak, it was in the winter time where it's a little bit slower, and the owner John let us start at 5. 5 minutes.
But I mean, hundreds of people go through there. I saw. I was watching a tour from the control room, which is with Alana out there.
Alana, she's great.
Getting everybody excited.
Yeah, she whoops them up.
Yeah. And
when I started there, we'd maybe, especially in the winter, you get 5 or 6 people a day. Yeah. And nowadays, it's kind of nonstop all the time, which is great to see that it's young people caring about, that kind of music and stuff and that kind of history and stuff. So it's great to see. But, they get so many people through there. It's
crazy.
Kind of,
They were sitting at the drums and the piano and moving mics around.
Oh, God, it drives me nuts. I take that stuff all the time and leave the B3 lid closed, and, But you hear, you just get your drums tuned or your piano tuned.
No.
The piano would never stay in tune because you have to keep it cool in there for 50 people every 10 minutes, and then they leave and it would, get really cold, and then it would.
Warm and cold.
So the piano would never stay in tune.
Oh, God.
It was awful.
So along the way, did you start replacing some of the gear?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff was, you're going to laugh at this, a lot of stuff was in museum cases. Like there was 2 Ampex 350s in the museum case, just on display upstairs. There was a RCA 44 in the display case. There was a Altec 639 in the display case.
Were these actual ones that have been downstairs?
No. They've been, just from some time they had stopped working and they just threw them up in the case. And I remember going through some of the old shelves, and it's not a big building, but I went through some of the shelves cleaning up one day, as you do as an assistant, and there was a drawer of 2 RCA 77s, 2 old Neumann U87s, an old 414, some crazy cool mics, and they had
and these were not things that Sam left behind, because when he put everything
over here.
Yeah, just sometime in the 80s or 90s, maybe they stopped working or they got put in, the guys just never started using them again. So I pulled them out and I went to the engineer like,
Hey.
what about these? And he's like, oh yeah, I remember those. And I asked the owner, if we could get the RCA's re-ribboned and the things checked, and got back and we started using those. And then I kind of like, can we pull some of these Ampexes out? And we started using those. And then when I became the head engineer, I told them about my idea of I want to have the same kind of equipment Sam had, but then also have a different kind of setup. And I took them, I showed them Ardent and some other studios because they're not studio owners, really. I mean, they own a studio, but they don't know about recording spaces.
They own a landmark and a tourist attraction.
Yeah, and when you see like, when someone sees a 40-foot 12-foot Soundcraft or something, it to them, and then you want to go to a 4-foot Neve or whatever, to them you're like, what? You want to do what?
Yeah.
But I kind of explained to them, and like, this is what part of what brings people in, and it has a sound difference and blah blah. And so they were very great about. I worked up a budget, and I also put a lot of my money into the original. I said I'm going to buy the original RCA stuff because if I were to ever leave or die or something, the next guy probably doesn't want to record 4 mics live to mono. So you don't need to do that necessarily, but you need to have a Pro Tools rig, and you need to have a. Right. So we ended up buying a cool little Studer desk that I loved. I missed that desk.
Yeah.
And I bought some of the old RCA stuff, and we kind of have a amalgamation of the two. So.
Wow.
And got tape machines working again.
Yeah. So were you doing some sessions just live to one track?
Yeah, I did a lot of stuff live to mono like Sam did, and a lot of stuff live to 2-track.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun, man. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And I think the band does too, because it puts this extra little bit of pressure on them. And to be in there with no headphones and you cut it and you look back and I give you a thumbs or something, we roll it back and play it back, and there it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun,
Oh, I know.
So.
Were you doing that to tape?
Yeah, I had a mono Ampex 350, and then we had a Studer A80 RC that we did a lot of. I did a Dale Watson's. We did a 7-inch in Johnny Cash style. It's like 4 songs on each side.
Oh yeah.
Jeff had to knock it. He called me like, to get this on a 7-inch, it's only 6 minutes, but I gotta knock it down like 20 dB. I said, call Dale, and Dale's like, do it. So it's a real quiet 7-inch, but it's awesome. But we did it all live to 2-track.
Yeah.
And he met the band that night. They learned the song that night.
Nice.
And it was a blast. So.
Were you arranging players on some sessions then too?
A lot
to bring in.
Yeah, a lot of times they would they need an upright bass player because they come from England or something.
Right.
And I got to play. I'm such a fan of Scotty Moore and those guys.
Yeah.
That I would never call myself a session guitar player, but if you need someone to do That's Right Mama or some rockabilly, that's like my one thing I can do. And so it would be fun to hit record and go out there and we would all do it together,
That's awesome.
And so that was fun.
Yeah.
So.
What was your eventual path there? I mean.
Well, I've been there for 11 years.
Yeah. Wow.
I worked my way up to the manager. I've been the chief engineer for about 5, and I loved it there. I mean, it was a great job, and I mean, you don't have any problems booking sun. I mean, I remember the last whole year I was there.
Yeah.
It was like 330 some odd days, if I remember. And then the time I had off, I went to Canada to make a record with this band called the Sheepdogs, because I love to work. If I'm not in the studio, I kind of freak out. And so I loved it there. But I went and did I tell this to people too, that everything's an audition. But I got a call out of nowhere from this guy Dave Cobb, this producer, and he said, "Will you come down to Fame and engineer this Anderson East kid for me for a day?" And he gave me kind of heads up on Fame. At that time, needed a lot of work, and he had heard from a mutual friend of ours, Mark Neal, that I'm very patient and I'm used to like stuff not working, and I don't get flustered and angry and throw things and shut down or something.
It's honestly something you don't hear someone as their list of qualifications.
Yeah,
not something you usually hear, but yeah, I mean, and Fame I think is in a little bit better shape.
Oh yeah,
now,
it's in great shape. I just
it
did something in there.
Be known as like it was just kind of let.
Which and I completely understand, and it's amazing now. And it was amazing then. When I went down there, it sounded incredible, and they've got the amazing instruments and the microphones and stuff. It was just the console and patch bay and just little things like that. But he called and said he liked to hear a lot of stuff I did, and he really liked it, and asked if I could come do this thing. So I go down there. I meet him. I met him once before at a 79 thing briefly. But when I meet him, I set up. We get sounds, and about an hour in, he goes, "This sounds incredible." And I'm going, "Yeah, it's Fame. It's Rick Hall's U87. I don't need, this is incredible." And I'm loving it too. And he goes, you want to do the next Jason Isbell record with me? And I said, well, yeah.
Sure.
But then you know how many times have you heard you want to do this record with me and nothing ever happens? So
how many records that I've done more records that I haven't done.
So I drove home that night thinking like that'd be really cool. Let's see if it happens.
Yeah.
And he called about 2 days later and said it's I think we did the thing in January. He's like it's all month of March. It's at Sound Emporium in Nashville, and I went to the owners at Sun. I said this Jason Isbell record is huge. I got to do it, but I'll be gone a month. And they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let their obviously their manager, their salaried engineer, be gone for a month.
Yeah.
In their studio, even though I had a replacement and stuff, and it was a little weird. And I kind of went back and I said one more time, like, it's a really big deal. Like, this will be a big record and it'll help bring people to Sun, believe it or not. Because if I get known as a better engineer, whatever, it'll.
Right. I mean, because Sun's. I mean, I'm sure James felt this too. It's kind of it's a nice little job, but it's kind of a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it is.
It
is
because you're not really gonna generally have time to really work on full albums or.
Yeah, and I saw that with James, and also because of the tourist thing, you're always the studio is the redheaded stepchild in a sense of the tour is where it makes the money, where it gets all the people in. Yeah. So the studio takes second place, although in my heart it's the first place, because without the studio, without the soul of it, there's nothing. So, and I'd watch James kind of, spend 20, 30 years there and not necessarily be happier. So that all weighed in my mind, and I've been thinking about leaving. I've been thinking about for a while needing to make a jump, because we've known each other for years at these panels, and I'm always known as the Sun guy, and I just kind of want to be known as Matt as opposed to the Sun guy. And I wanted to work in the other rooms. It's one thing to work in the same room every day with the same microphones. Anybody can be good at that. Yeah. But I want to know, am I good elsewhere? Can I make things elsewhere that sound good? And I wanted to. Sam Phillips said, if you're not doing anything different, you're not doing anything at all.
I remember that
and
quote.
That really. Yeah. I don't want to be sitting there trying to recreate the same thing. I want to be able to. Yeah. Do all, so all this played into it, and I knew if I didn't do that record, I would regret it forever. Yeah. So it was kind of the easiest decision and the hardest decision. In about 5 minutes, I decided I got to leave, even though. Yeah. So I went and told them, well, I'm sorry, I'll be leaving in 2 months. I'm going to do this record, and everyone kind of thought I was crazy, and I left and did the record, and it ever since then, and it helped because I did that record, and this girl I produced, Margo Price, her record, which I did like 2 years before that, came out then, so it was a good 1-2 punch to get into the. Yeah,
because that record took a while. Margo Price's record took quite a while.
Took a while for it to come out, and so I went independent. And I only had one record booked. Wow. But after then, I stayed. Dave booked me for like 20 more albums, and
so Dave really liked you, and you started working pretty good as a team.
Yeah. We've worked very well together, and I think too a great thing about me going independent was I felt like I was getting a little lazy at Sun, in the sense that the phone was always going to ring. There's always going to be email booking, so I didn't have to worry about like feeding myself or something. Yeah. But at the same time, every person I read about, and I talked to Jeff Powell, who went independent from Ardent at a great time and stuff, and there's something to said about the going out there and fighting for gigs and calling people and getting those kind of gigs and stuff. Yeah. And that was one of and we talked about this at the panel, your panel, but it was one of the best things I ever did, because it forced me to get up and make calls and get out there more and not let things just come to me. And I still feel that way about fighting for that stuff. And I thought about, not to go back to Sam, but Sam, and this especially from the book, but he was at WREC, he was recording big band. He had this prestigious job, and he had two kids, a wife, and a deaf mute aunt he was providing for. Yeah. And he leaves it and starts the first studio in Memphis to record black artists in 1950, when no one bought black records, and he didn't make any money, but he made the jump, and without him making that jump, and I'm not calling myself Sam Phillips because that's not happening here, but I just mean,
taking that leap.
You got to make a leap of faith if you care about it, and that's all I want to do is record and produce and stuff. So
I know the feeling.
I know So to me, it was a hard decision, but it was also a no-brainer, really. Yeah. So.
What kind of places in that time frame did you do with work with Dave?
Well, it's funny because I called Jeff one day. We talk a lot, and I was going, man, I have the keys to Sam Phillips, Sun Studio, and RCAA right now. and that's a weird feeling.
What year is it?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been very lucky. I wrote down all the studios I got to work at, and it was like Fame. It was all these classic studios, and it's rare for me to go into a modern. I can remember last time I worked at an SSL, or something. I've only been in like funky old studios, but
that's funny.
Dave and we probably did about, I'd say 20 records now at this point since the Isbell record. So in a year and a half or so, we've probably done 20 records, and he's done a lot of records with other people in that time. And I've been producing a lot and doing other records too. So
man,
it's we like to work quick. So like we usually do a record in 7 to 12 days.
Yeah.
Isbell will be a month. Some people might be more, but
rather. What's a month-long record like when you're not even at home?
It's interesting. You're in the studio so much. Even when I wake up, I don't do. I maybe take a walk. If I'm at home, I walk the dog. But it's usually I get to the studio pretty early and just. Yeah. It's just nice to be there. Yeah. And turn stuff on and maybe check emails or something. Make the coffee, all that stuff. And then I don't like to get there right when the band's getting there. I like to be there and be relaxed and doing things, and they come in. So it's just a lot of that, really. And I all my friends in Nashville, I've been going up there a lot, but all my friends are some of the old artists and songwriters and session guys. So they don't, I'll get up early and we'll watch some, old Western or something, and or hang out with them at night or something. Yeah. So, and just try and soak up more info.
Learn things.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible.
Yeah, it's all books and pictures and movies and interviews.
Yeah, interviews. What are those? It's just a treat of my life to meet and hang out with people like Kyle Lenning and stuff like that too. Yeah. You're like, oh shit, that's where I found out I always wondered why the fuck Waylon Jennings would use a flanger.
Yeah.
It was his guitars and pedals and Kyle.
I heard that Glenn Johns gave him the phaser or something.
Is that what it was?
But I don't know if that was true or not.
That's funny.
I've been getting into him a lot lately. Glenn. Those records are always been Glenn, but Waylon stuff.
Oh, Waylon stuff. Yeah.
And I just read that. I'm reading this Outlaw book, Learning, and it said Cowboy Jack Clement did Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way? He mixed that and tracked that.
Oh, interesting.
And it's such a cracked out mix in such a great way,
Yeah,
the guitars are loud, the kick drums, cool.
Cowboy was a real interesting character, obviously, but also fearless.
Yeah,
in the studio, I think. If you learned something from Sam,
he learned that.
You might have learned that.
I really got to know him well over the years, and he was just an amazing person.
Yeah, I just found I've never met him. People used to say, just go by his house.
You could, you just knock it.
You could, I guess. I thought that seemed crazy.
No, he'd be happy to show you around.
Oh, man. Things you miss sometimes. Didn't get a chance to interview like Willie Mitchell. You just think of all those things. You're like, damn it. But, you're lucky when you get to do the good stuff. So how did you and Jeff end up landing at Sam Phillips Recording?
Well, Jeff's obviously been independent for... Gosh, I don't know how many years now.
Yeah.
And I went independent. And so, we're kind of based out of Phillips, and how it came to be was Roland James was the great, engineer here, and I used to come visit him a lot and loved Roland. And the Phillips family still owns the place, and I've always been close with the Phillips family. And when Roland passed away, there was a kind of lull of what they're going to do. And I voiced to Jerry, who's Sam's son, and Hallie, who's Jerry's daughter, who very much wants to keep on the legacy, that I would love to do some recordings out of here, and I need a place to put all my gear and to kind of base myself out of.
Yeah. And
Jeff was getting into vinyl cutting, and had left Ardent, and he had just bought a lathe and needed to put a lathe somewhere. And so I didn't want to do Phillips if they were going to just be doing a bunch of tours, like Sun or something. When they said they want to keep it just a studio and they want to make it right and put, do whatever they need to do, keep it going.
Yeah.
Which means a lot to me because you don't want to go in a place that they're not really, putting the money back into the building.
Right.
And once you've seen it now, you've seen it before, it's just an amazing place and it sounds incredible.
Architecturally, just walking up to the damn place. I mean, he spent money on architects and built construction. And this isn't,
It's
a lot of studios are retrofitted.
Yeah.
And a lot of studios that were built from the ground up are not very interesting to look at.
Yeah.
And this is a rare thing.
But he made sure it caught your eye.
Oh man, yeah.
And it's Jeff and I did a session here, and we both said, "Man, this place has a sound."
Right.
And this is before the chambers and the plates. It was just on the floor. It had a sound. And of course, I'm a big Sam Phillips freak. And weirdly enough, it worked out I'm not a numerology guy, but I was at Sun for basically the same amount of time that he was at Sun, and he moved to Phillips and I moved to Phillips. It's really weird, but
weird.
But I met Phillips and we became friends, and I said I'd like to do some stuff out here, and I've got a lot of equipment, and would you be interested? You know, we kind of mutually wanted to connect with each other in a sense, and then I kind of helped pull Jeff in to cut vinyl, and so they don't really have a house engineer,
right.
and Jeff and I are kind of just based out of here, but we bring most of the projects in, and stuff, and it's just been a wonderful. It just feels like family here, and it's a real tight knit group, and it's very private, and it's just real nice. But it's great too because I can go to Nashville and do something at RCA with Dave, or I love doing stuff with Boo at Royal. So we've done a lot of stuff together.
That's fun.
I like now being able just to do whatever the project needs. If it needs to be done at Arden or Royal or something, we'll do it there. And but pretty much everything is perfect right here to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, though. You know, a lot of fixing up gear and
which luckily I don't have to deal with too much of that. It's paying up to trying to keep my stuff going, but you know, and the Phelps family's here every day, so like you're cutting, and then Jerry Phillips comes in and goes, "Man, I don't mean to produce, but what if the Worley started that song?" And he goes, "Shit, that's a great idea. Hey, what if the Worley started that song?" So it's been.
And how is their involvement? Are they really here to kind of help manage and get things together?
Jerry and Hallie and them they're great music fans, and they feel like they want to host. So like when you bring an album in, they'll drive down from Alabama and hang out. They probably lose money on the hotel rooms, you know, versus what the studio's getting.
They don't even live in town then.
No, but they come in to like introduce themselves to artists and welcome into the studio and take them out to dinner, and so I think it's mind blowing for the artist to be treated like that, because usually you know it's like we need to charge you for those. You drank like 20 bottles of water, and then we need to charge you. Or the CD, it's $10 for a blank CD or something.
I hate that shit.
And none of that's here. It's like, hey, can I take you out to dinner? And so it's just been that's amazing too. And Hallie's starting to produce, so
I gathered that.
Yeah,
man,
so
that's really cool.
She's produced about 2 or 3 projects now, and she's done great. So
wow, is she engineering as well, or just
no?
Shots?
There's been a couple of us engineering, but she wants to get into that too. So
man, that's cool. I know I met her, and she's like, oh, love the magazine. We're so excited that you're here, and I'm like, someone just told her to be
We have
nice.
a great waiter
Thank
too,
you.
by the way.
Yeah, I like this. JP.
There's more in the fridge if y'all up here.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Well, cheers, Mr. Crane.
Thank you. Kind of feels appropriate to be having a drink in here.
Yeah, it does.
So, what sessions have happened in this space now since kind of moving in, so to speak?
I've been mixing a lot of Elvis in here, which is funny.
I heard about that. Is it stuff from Graceland sessions or something?
Yeah. So the first thing I did was he got tired of recording at Nashville.
Right.
And so he demanded that they record him at home. So, and he had done the record at American, obviously.
Right. That one, that's a cool record.
And that's a great record. And so Felton then bought a bread truck, turned it into a mobile rig, drove down to Memphis. It promptly broke down in Jackson. They towed it to Graceland, where it stayed till after Elvis died.
Oh my God!
And we've been trying to find pictures. We've seen one picture on the outside, but we're trying to find pictures of the inside of the truck.
I've never even heard about this truck.
They recorded a bunch of dates in Jungle Room, Jungle Room, and so I mixed a lot of that. And they put out the original masters, and disc 2 was all my mixes of the unreleased stuff. Wow. And it was incredible stuff. And now they've got me doing some live shows and some rehearsals from the live shows. So it's been amazing.
Is that pretty wild to hear that voice?
It is pretty nuts. Like, you know, sometimes you mute the vocal and you work on the track for a while, and it's kind of like a 70s disco thing that could be qualified, you know, like what's this? And there's people coming and laugh, and then you want to mute the vocal, and there's like, oh wow, you know, or something.
That voice.
And it's Burton, you know. And when I was mixing, they brought the guys down. So James Burton and Ronnie Tutt and Laura Putnam and them were there.
Tutt's such a good drummer.
It's incredible. I mean, he really, like, he had double kick drum and all these things that,
he's showy. And you watch the videos, you know, he's really, like...
I mean, he's like Animal on the drums.
Totally.
It's insane. And so that's been a lot of fun to mix. And then I've produced a couple artists. This great artist, Sean Rowe, I'm really excited about.
I heard that's a really wild record.
I'll play something. Yeah. It's amazing. And this great artist from Nashville, Patrick Sweany. We did a record in like 5 days.
I know him.
You'll love. This is a whole new record for him. It's like 70s country funk. It's not like blues shouty.
Oh, really?
I'll give you a sneak of that too. And then this great artist, Emily Barker, who's from England, came, and we made this kind of amazing. I wanted to do like a Burt Bacharach, like a classy sounding record. So Jeff Powell engineered it, and we Jeff and I talked about we put all the pre's in the room. Because I've done a couple of times where I put the pre in the room and run a short cable and skip everything, and it just sounds more hi-fi to me. So
are you running through old wiring in the old studio?
Well, the wiring here is really great, but you know the room's big, and then you're going. Long. And one day I just thought about one night, and Jim Dickinson talked about once about how much stuff it goes through because of the patch bay and the console and digital and all these things. So I was thinking about, and we cut everything to tape. I usually cut everything to tape first, and then dump it. But we put the pre's in the room. We ran 10-foot cables to all the mics. We went straight from the back of the pre's into the tape machine. So we skipped the patch bay completely. Because when you think about every connection and every insertion and stuff, it's quite a lot of cable and it sounded great here. It would have sounded really good if I had done all that too, but we just wanted to get nerdy and stuff, and we got good at sign language. You know, one, this doesn't mean up, this means good, this doesn't mean three, you know. So but I think that record came out really amazing, and we did a lot of strings on all these records. We had a whole quartet.
Is Emily's record out?
No, it's they're kind of shopping it right now, but because we've all done that just in the past few months,
right?
And then Jeff did St. Paul and the Broken Bones, some overdubs in there, and I'm doing Margo's record. We're doing her next record in about a couple of weeks in here.
Oh, cool!
And
it's an awesome progression for her too.
Yeah.
We're going from a record that's tracked at Sun to the one that was on.
We're making country records in Memphis, which I love. You know, there's something about that.
Well, it's. I don't know if her topics will be quite the same in the next record, but she's got a little bit of backlash towards Nashville anyway. Yeah, well, there'll be something. They might be government related now or something, but luckily she's always. I've heard some of the demos, and one of them is just incredible. They booked 2 hours, I think, after it was South by Southwest. I just got this call, Margo Price, hey, we want to come record, and I didn't bother check. I don't like checking people out a lot of times before they come because I want to be surprised and I want to go off my first impression. Yeah.
I don't like listening to people's previous albums because you may hear all these things that you feel like you have to do, but you don't, because they're coming to you to do something different. So, you know, like, don't listen to a record and hear it's all auto-tuned and really precise drums and click tracks and stuff, because they're coming to you for a reason, or coming to that place for a reason. So there was just a name on the calendar, you know, and they came in and we did it to my 1-inch 8-track, and we just did one song. It was 2 hours. We started at like 11 o'clock at night because that's the only thing they could do, and the song was great. And I was blown away by her and the players. Just the drummer in a little room like that, you know, no isolation. The drummer is kind of just as important as the vocalist, or anybody really is. So, and we just didn't get it. And I almost just wanted, I didn't just give it to him the night for free or something. Because, you know, when you're cutting and you feel it's not your fault. It's not necessarily their fault. It's just the thing. But I remember I pulled them aside and said, I think you're incredible. And, you know, you guys have been, you know, driving all day or whatever. You know, it's hard to be creative after a South by Southwest run and then all those things.
Exhausting.
But I said, you guys are just incredible, and I'd love to work with you again, and I'll do whatever we need to do to work with you again. And they left, and we kind of kept in touch now and then. And she called. Wasn't too much later. She called and wanted to book 3 days, and we did. And they came down. We did the record. But I told her later. I said, I'm not Sam Phillips. I'll never be Sam Phillips. But I felt like that was the first time at Sun that I felt what it was like to be Sam Phillips, because when it was him, Carl Perkins just came to the door. Johnny Cash just knocked on the door. And it was like this raw talent that no one had ever. Yeah. And she just came and went down, and I was just blown away by them and her songs and the voice and stuff. So I just felt like that must have what Sam felt like when Jerry Lee or one of those cats had come to the door.
You're like, whoa, this is a rare gem.
I got to work with you. Like, you're the real deal. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just begged them to like, please come back, and I, you know, they worked a lot of places in Nashville, but when it was time to make the record, they called back and came down, and we did the record in 3 days. And
after 6.
And after 6, and I didn't know at the time, but I mean, she pawned her wedding ring, and they sold their car to make the record. And
wow.
I told her, you know, later I said, if I'd known that, we would have done an IOU or something, girl, you know.
Yeah, like. Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I think that lends to the album, the urgency of like, we got to make this record. We don't have any, you know, we just blew our money to do it and stuff. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe, God, you know, put it on the line.
Yeah.
The record is so real.
Yeah.
You know, it went crazy, right? I mean, did it go into the charts?
Yeah, it was top 10 country charts, and she was the first, I forget the thing, but she broke the record like first girl that wasn't on the hot charts or 52 chart or whatever it is, the first girl, female artist to break the top 10 country record without all that other stuff. So
without like a major and stuff.
Yeah, and not having, usually you're on the like a singles out or something, right? First, so you're on the 52, sure. And she didn't have any of that. I knew we made something amazing, and we mixed it we tracked it in 3 days, we mixed it in 3 days, and then everyone turned it down, and then Jack White and them heard, and they put it out just like it was. And
yeah.
And I think that was a great fit for her, you know. Mm-hmm. But she's such a great voice, and she tours, and she puts on a great show. She never complains. I mean, it's just a true kind of soldier of music, really. But in this time and age, to have a female singer like that with things to say and like her own voice and her own. Yeah. Like I said, I've always been known as like the Sun Studio guy, and you know, he does either rockabilly or the old sounding records. Sure. And with Margo's record, I don't feel like it sounds old. I feel like it sounds kind of. I try to make things sound timeless. Like they don't.
I think so too. You know, like the kick drum doesn't go tap tap like a new record.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's not missing like an old record.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And that's
it kind of bumps a little.
Yeah.
More like an old funk record, even.
That's the old Elvis. Elvis mic.
Oh man, that's crazy. You know, it even feels like a little like. Bobby Gentry or something like that slightly, but then not at all. Yeah. And then it's just when it's just retro, you're probably missing something. Yeah, yeah. Missing potential.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like when they're tracking, and you know this too, like you don't, I'm not thinking like I need this to be, like, you can reference a song or something, but really it's just you're moving the faders, you're going. Yeah. And then I'll add like a delay or plates to things as I go in distortion to things. Yeah. But then I'm not thinking about it too much, and I just want things to sound good, and I want things to sound interesting. And I happen to love all these old records and all these old sounds, and I'm in an old room, and I've got old mics, so I think it ties in that. But there's no like, this needs to sound like 1956 or something. It just needs to sound like her. Yeah. You know? And,
I mean, if you're trying to imitate stuff, you're probably going to fail.
Yeah, and by that time you missed the take, you know?
I think sometimes we plan, we kind of accidentally erase the vocabulary of sound. You know?
I agree.
You know, you gotta be a little careful. Like, don't throw everything out, but don't be afraid of the new.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you hear, I'll Take You There by the Staple Singers. Like when I hear that, it doesn't sound old to me. It sounds hi-fi and punchy, and
it really does.
It doesn't sound like if you put. To me, I don't know if I would have said it was cut in 1970, 68 or 66 or something. Yeah. And some of those Buddy Holly things sound so hi-fi. Yeah. And then you hear something concursely like a Bruce Springsteen to me. A lot of stuff sounds so dated. And a lot of stuff from the 90s sounds so dated. Yeah. That to me, it can affect the song. I try and, you can hint at stuff, you can do things, but, like some of those songs just transcend time. So a lot of the Beatles stuff transcends a decade, but some things are so, like the Mumford & Sons stomping clap thing. There's things like that, that I don't think I'll ever do, because I feel like those are too
overcompressed drums.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Country music today is all 80s drums. I don't get it, Larry.
It's strange.
It's so weird.
Well, if you think about this, when you like, you know exactly what I'm talking about if I explain this right. If you think about this, where you're trying to get everything to be right on the edge of the speaker and really slamming and taking up that space, and you're trying to max out or minimize the dynamic range, and then it's like a fight. The mixing process is like a fight of all the frequencies and transients and all these things, and and then that leads you down this sort of path where you make, I think, recordings come out sounding very homogenized in general, because they're all trying to make this sort of same thing happen that's sort of unreal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously records are fantasy anyway.
Yeah, they are. And that's what I love about like and that's why Sam said he wanted to come up with the slap echo, because he said none of us listen to just pure music. We hear it echoing in a restaurant or something, so we try to do it. And so when you hear Blue Moon, that's one of my favorite Sun cuts that never came out. Yeah. That slow, that 7.5 bps delay makes your neck hair stand up. But but it adds to the song, and the song's so empty otherwise. When I did the Emily Barker record that Jeff engineered for me, we tracked it to tape. It sounded incredible. We dumped it into Radar, our Pro Tools, and we did a couple of overdubs, shaker here, something like that, strings. And then it came time to mix. And I always save the mix as it's going while we're doing it, because that's when it feels the best, And I took it to another studio, because at that time things weren't in here ready to mix yet. And so I took it to Ward Archers. They have a big API.
Beautiful.
Automation.
API legacy.
Because I don't really EQ, I don't really compress. I just like to ride things to make them sit.
Yeah.
And but we tracked the whole band live in that room together, and I got there, and they didn't really need any automation because they had played to each other. And I should mention the headphones here. There's no volume knob. There's no more me. Everyone gets the same stereo send, and it's what I'm hearing is what you get. And I love that.
You're the opposite of me.
Yeah, but it makes you play like you don't have headphones on.
Yeah.
And if you've got good players, if you don't have good players, it can be a nightmare.
Exactly.
But I brought it up, and I started. I put all the failures at 0, and I start building the mix on the API, and I patch in a little thing here or there, and I go, this doesn't feel right. And of course I'm in a new environment and stuff.
Yeah.
But I said, and we've got 3 days to mix the whole record. I go. I say to the artist, it's not feeling right to me. I want to try something. So I drove back to Phillips. I grabbed my Radar. I brought it back. We came out 1-2 of the Pro Tools into external, and I flipped the rough mix with just the faders set on Pro Tools and I versus the mix on the API, and it felt incredible coming out 1-2 of the Radar. And there could be a multiple thousand reasons why, but Jeff Powell tracked it so good, it didn't need anything more. It just needed to be a solo up here, a vocal up here.
Right.
So all I did was I wrote all those things, and we print them as we went. And it beat, because it didn't need anything more. And I felt like the biggest thing I've learned this year is to know when things don't need anything more, don't need to be touched. Right. You can compress stuff. You can put that parallel compressor on and make the vocal blah blah blah, but the times when it trails off and he pulls you into the mix, you gotta what did he say, and you kind of play the next thing, and then it pops big. And so I've been like this Patrick Sweany record I'll play you, we tracked it to tape, and I was riding the faders as I go and committing. I always commit, and I go, and we played it back, and I go, that's done. I'm gonna save it just like this. We'll come back in 3 days if I I'll mix the rest of the record, and if I find some trick that works, I'll do it. But it ended up we just left it as how they performed it, and it feels amazing to me, and it moves. And if I feel like if I sat there and tried to EQ things and stuff, it would become more safe.
He's a great example of someone who gigs a lot.
Yeah.
And he's just got a voice, got control over his voice. He's got a voice. Fuck, what else do you need?
He's got the most amazing voice. And to me, Sam Phillips, he loved Howlin' Wolf. Howlin' Wolf said that was his greatest discovery ever.
Yeah.
And when Jerry and Knox, one of my favorite stories is they're producing John Prine in here, Pink Cadillac record, and they having trouble with the song called Saigon. They call Sam at home, who's kind of been retired, and they go, Sam, you would love this guy. He's got the worst voice you've ever heard. Because Sam just loved unique voices. And what I love about Patrick is, and on this record you'll hear Patrick does a lot of the blues and the holler and stuff. But we got him to sing quiet on this record. And it's almost like William Bell or something. I mean, he has the most amazing emotive voice.
Yeah.
And when he sings softly, all these other things come through. And then when he shout, and then the thing is, like when I was telling him is, when you shout and holler, it's amazing. When you do that for 8 songs, something goes. But when you sing quiet for 2 and then you holler again, or halfway through you holler something, it's like, whoa, boy.
Yeah.
So
intense.
Yeah, it just
dramatic.
It grabs you. So
that's
we
cool.
we have fun. So
yeah, he's a funny guy. What other things? What do you see in the future here? Working out of here and working on other places.
Well, I think they're gonna keep updating. Some of the gear needs to be fixed, and we're gonna get a little B room going where I'm gonna keep some stuff in there.
Right. And you're talking about making the B room like kind of maybe a kind of like limited, like all one room facility.
Yeah.
And then limited tracks or some retro kind of gear.
I think I'll have like, it'd be cool to have. They have a 1-inch 8-track and to keep it set in there. But I think limitations are good. But at the same time, I found that nothing ever works twice. The minute we tracked like this Emily Barker record, we tracked it with the session guys and we did it all live, and we don't learn the songs beforehand. They come in, we sit in there, we all learn together, we figure out the groove, the lick, we go. And the next artist I did, which was literally like 3 weeks later, was this great artist Sean Rowe, and I had this almost the same session guys. And we're all kind of riding high off this incredible record we just made, like live in 4 days. Like, we got this. This is, like, this is what we do. And we get in there, and Sean is one of those guys that has his own unique timing. He doesn't often play with a band, so he purposefully speeds up and slows down within the song to fit the lyric.
Oh, yeah.
And so we got in there, tried to do it all live, and the drummer's trying to keep him in time. And it wasn't happening, and we quickly had like oh shit, and then I sent everybody home, but the drummer, who happened to be King Coomer, who's amazing.
Oh yeah.
And we just did like Sean acoustic guitar and vocal, and I'm a live, want to give everybody live guy, but it wasn't called for most of this record.
Yeah.
So Sean ended up playing acoustic vocal. We got the take, and then Kim would go and overdub drums.
Wow.
And it worked out amazing because he's not playing like straight drums. He's doing these weird drum moments, and there's moments where we just like slam the door to the chamber, and that's the snare on the record or something. And we didn't have time to think. I just knew it wasn't working with the band. Send the band home. Guys, come back tomorrow. Thank you. We're gonna get there, and we did it like this, and it couldn't have come out better. Like it would any other way, it would not have been as great as it. And now it's just an amazing record. So that's why I'm never too attached to a lot of things in the studio, because the thing you use that one time, it never works the next time. The time, then you find something. But that's also what's fun about it. Yeah. So, for me, I don't. The future, I want to do more producing. I always want to engineer, and I love working here, and I love the different ways I can work in here and change it up. There's so many ways to do a record in here. And then when the B room's going, that'll be more fun to try and figure out how to make a record work in that little room. And then there's always Royal, there's always Nashville, there's all these places to go. But I love changing it up every time, because it just, the minute you think that thing's going to work for you, it never does. It doesn't work sometimes day to day, it just, and I think part of it's me too. I got a little self-conscious because I'd produced these 3 records in a row, and I wanted strings on all of them, and I had the same players and stuff, and so the first 2 we did these amazing strings, and then the 3rd record I called the string arranger this great guy Sam Shoop, and I go, Sam, and this is Patrick's record, it's the 3rd record. I say, I want strings on this, but I don't want to be doing the same thing every time, so I may not use the same bass player every time, or the same. I'll switch one person up or something. But it's all for what I think is best. I said, I want you to do strings on this, but I'm gonna make you do it all on the Mellotron. So he came in and he arranged it, and then he had to play all the parts in the Mellotron.
Oh my God.
And of course, it's not a full octave, so he can't get up high. So then we would have to go to a flute or a Celeste or something, And Patrick's record's like really cool sounding now because it's strings, but it's a Mellotron and they're weirder sounds. So I think there's always the limitations are good to do. So I didn't remember the question, but that's what you get.
I like that. Do you feel there's certain things that you just gravitate towards as an engineer that are unique to you? Because I feel like when I hear stuff you work on, but I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what you're doing.
I don't know what you... I know what you mean. I don't do a lot of processing.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of EQ. I think what I do, to me, is probably pretty boring, because I go and do... I watch Vance and Andrew Sheps and these guys do things, and I go, I never thought about it like that. That's incredible. Andrew Sheps, one of my favorite moments was when we did Potluck. One of the last years or something. Andrew and I were at the Naris room, which of course none of the kids wanted to go to the Naris room. They wanted to go to the Ruben Eve room or something. And they had I Andrew won't mind me telling this one, but they had an ice machine for like snow cones.
Yeah.
But we just put absinthe in them. And Michael Romanowski gave us absinthe.
Nice.
And we sat and I said,
Michael.
I know you got something you want to play me, Andrew. I want to hear something you're excited about because he's got his own little label.
Yeah.
And he played me this record by this band he put out called Low Roar. Yeah. And the record's called O. And we sat in just chairs in a hotel room with little JBLs on demo. And we sat there and we listened to it all, from front to back. And it's one of those records you got to hear front to back. Mm-hmm. And slowly but surely kids would pop in. And they would come in talking loud like, yeah, bro, I love that. And they'd shut up because they would see Andrew Sheps there. And we're listening intently. And by the end of the record, we had like 80 people crammed in this little hotel room sitting transfixed by this record. Wow. And every time something cool would happen, I'd nudge him, and he would be kind of a proud, when you're playing your mix for something, you're kind of a proud papa. Yeah. And it was just incredible. And I heard things on that record I've never heard before. He does spatial things that go around your head, and he knows stuff like Chad Blake does. And so I feel like I'm kind of boring in a sense, but then Andrew writes me and compliments me, and you compliment me on things. But, I love I'm pretty minimal on stuff, and I do love, I've never really cared too much for Neve 1073s. A lot of the things that people really love, I've seen Vance and Daryl Thorpe and all these people make 1073s sound amazing. And I know it's not the pre, it's them. They just click it on. But every time I do them, I feel like they're tubby, and the EQs, this sounds hard to me. Yeah. And it might be because nowadays we don't get to work on a big Neve console. They're probably poorly racked in a thing or something. You know what I mean?
It could be.
And it could be all course things, but
bad transformers.
A lot of the old Memphis studios classically used Spectrasonic stuff, stacks, and American had one for a short time, and
the Autotronics consoles that were being built there were being built with
originally Autotronics was building. They basically were Spectrasonic parts, just rebranded Autotronics. But apparently the guy was Welton DeTon. He started building them out the back door, and so Spectrasonics quit sending him stuff, and then he modified. And that's when you got those later '70s non-discrete ones, but. Since I'm such a Memphis freak, I'm totally obsessed with all kinds of music, but especially Memphis history and Memphis studios. I found the same Autotronic. It was one of 5 made by Autotronics in '69. Stax bought one of them. Ardent bought one of them. Yeah. And this is like the 3rd one. And I found it in Canada. Some guy in Canada had it. I just happened to see it at the right time. Wow. And I bought it from him, and I got it back. And then I've just recently got the Ardent one. But I've made them where I can take them around. And I think the Spectrasonic stuff is... It's one of the few things that I've heard where I feel like I hear the kick drum in the room or the something transient or something, and I go back in the control room and it sounds just like that. Yeah. And then it does have EQ, but like just 2 dB is a lot. So you might do a smile thing or something on it. And then there are just certain mics, I like, but I've always thought I hear things differently than people because half the time what I think sounds good, I don't think anyone else sounds good, but mostly I just go for the feeling. I just try and find the feeling in something. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you on that because I do. I am very specific about gear, but at the same time I don't really care about what I'm using because, like I said, it doesn't work 2 times in a row. Right. And I'll go work. Now I would travel so much. I don't have the luxury of
always having the same stuff.
Yeah. So it's like so it doesn't matter to me, but.
I feel like it's like going to a restaurant. Which we're going to do soon.
Yeah.
And looking at the menu and going, oh, that'd be fun to try.
I've never been a huge U87 guy, and then there's like 12 U87s here, all from like the 60s or 70s. Wow. And I think, back then, we don't think about this now, but back then, like RCA and those places, they would order I'm sure they'd order like 30 of them and listen and find the sweet ones and then send the other ones back. Because that's what they had to have done. Yeah. And so all the UA7s here sound incredible. And it's probably because they got 60 years of spit and dust on them, But, I was using that for a while. And then I did that for 2 records and I got bored with that. Not that it didn't sound good, and I used an old dynamic. On Patrick's record, we used mostly dynamics and it just sounded fun. And I think it's just like when you're excited every day about doing something and you want to find new sounds and stuff. Yeah. It's fun to try different things as long as it doesn't get in the way. It never gets in the way of, I'm not big on. I don't like to try a different pre on everything. I like kind of uniform pre's or something like that. To me is phase shift and all these other issues. But mics are fun you can swap out a mic rather quick. But if the artist is ready to go, we're not swapping out anything.
Yeah,
It's go time, but
right.
you know.
You can always save a great performance no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, unless you didn't
and
record at all.
if the performance is great, who cares what the fucking kick drum sounds like? You know, you're listening to the vocal, or you're listening to all these other aspects
There's
of it.
Something
So
to draw in.
yeah, so
cool.
Well, thank you, Larry.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for listening. Find us online at tapepop.com, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time.